Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about cleaning up the trash. Yes, you heard that right. But not the kind we take out from our homes, but the kind our cells produce every day. But before we talk about cleanup, let's start with something simple proteins. You might remember this from biology class that proteins are the workers of our body. They repair, they build, and they regulate almost everything in our body. But there's a catch. Proteins can work only if they are folded in the right shape. So, starting from the most fundamental unit, amino acids, they make a linear chain of protein, which is called the primary structure, which then folds into a coil called the secondary structure. And finally, it forms a fully folded protein, which is three-dimensional protein. And now it is ready to perform its function. Now, once protein has performed its function, it cannot just stick around. It has to be broken down so that these fundamental building blocks, amino acids, they can be recycled in our body and can be used to make new proteins. That is why there is a constant recycling of proteins in our body. And the way that is maintained is by an inbuilt recycling machinery called the proteasome. The proteasome is present in every cell of our body. You can think of it like a paper shredder. The proteasome grabs old and damaged proteins, which are no longer needed in the body, and it breaks them not necessarily into amino acids, but into tiny small pieces, which are called peptides. These peptides can be either can be broken down into amino acids, can be reused for making proteins, or can be just simply cleared out. Now, what if the shredder stops working? Or what if the proteasome slows down and loses its efficacy? What will happen? The protein degradation cycle will be interrupted, right? And these proteins will start piling up like trash. They clump together and they form a tangled tuft. These tufts, if they accumulate in brain, they can form plaques and cause diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. But there is still hope. Here's the encouraging part. We can actually regulate or reactivate the proteasome, and that's where my role comes in. I design small drug-like molecules shown here. These drugs interact with the proteasome and activate it and bring it back to life so that it can again start degrading those trashy proteins and break them into recycled peptides, and hence the balance is regained in the cell. A lot of these drugs that I work with are inspired by nature. You might have heard of penicillin, morphine, aspirin. All these drugs are isolated from natural sources like plants and fungus. Actually, I can give you an example from my own experience. During my PhD, I worked with a drug which was isolated from a marine invertebrate deep in the ocean of Argentina. It took a lot of work and thousands of dollars only to isolate 2 milligrams. To understand the importance of this number, I have this bottle of Tylenol here. You might have seen it. It's an over-the-counter available pain reliever. Let me just read for you. The active ingredient in each tablet is 500 milligrams, which is 250 times more than what they isolated. Now, while nature does give us a lot of solutions, it does inspire us in a lot of ways, but we cannot completely rely on nature to extract these drugs on the scale we need, right? That is why I make them in lab. I study the structure of these drugs, design and create synthetic routes, and I make them chemically accessible in lab by faster and cheaper routes. So instead of using thousands of dollars, I only use a few hundred. Instead of spending months, I only spend weeks. And finally, and most importantly, once these drugs are synthesized, I can directly use them in lab to test for biological assets. So bringing it all together, as a scientist, I'm proud to say this, I make these drugs, and then I use these drugs to activate the proteasome, which then further degrade these trashy proteins into recycled peptides, and hence can prevent diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Now, these molecules that I work with, they might be small, but they represent something huge. They represent hope, hope for better treatments, and hope for giving people more time with the people they love. Thank you.